As the title suggests, these objections are pretty dumb.
That title being Dumb Things Atheists Say to Christians, okay? I mean, I can think of a few. Hello, hi, how are you doing? Any of the things that make a conversation happen, and it doesn't even have to be to a Grimsbyan. It could be anyone ever. Because talking to people, it's the stupidest mistake I have ever made. They're awful.
But also, these are the most common objections, so if you're going to go into spaces with atheists, this will be a very useful video for you.
Well, you would say that. My video am the bestest video ever, so you better watch it. Although I would never say that. I know all my videos are just the worst, and if anything, will make your life a little less good for having watched it. Anyway, these are the most common athey boy arguments, are they? Well, if you say so, fingers crossed you don't almost immediately say something that demonstrates that not to be true by your own standards. That would just be embarrassing.
So that being said, let's get right into it. Religion causes wars. F tier. Non sequitur.
Non sequitur? Non sequitur for what? Religion causes wars is rarely used as anything other than a point about religions being about peace and all that shit. I don't think anyone is using it as proof against God. In fact, most of the discussion atheists have with theists aren't "I am going to disprove your God." They are just about pointing out various flaws with certain religions and arguments for them, like how it's weird that a religion with an all-loving God would have any wars in that particular God's name. Funnily enough, declaring war on your first date rarely leads to any kind of love.
Just because wars are caused by people who are religious doesn't mean that God or the religion itself is not true.
Yeah, that's why people tend not to say that. It's almost like you aren't actually listening, and all you hear is, "God, not real though," 100% of the time. We do have other points, you know.
Pretty simple. Jesus never said, "I am God." So this is more of a Muslim objection. It's what Muslims usually say.
Two in, and you already fucked up the entire premise of your video. You know that Muslims are not atheists, right? In fact, they tend not to like us very much at all for some reason. And to call them that, they would be less than pleased with you, I'm sure. And if you do know that, then why even bring up their arguments that they make and not the ones that we do? Did you struggle that hard to find any? Christ.
And the first thing you got to say back is, well, when did Jesus say, in quotes, because remember, they're looking for a quote of Jesus saying, "I am God," right?
Okay, I just don't care. I mean, either way, he said it or he didn't. Why does it matter? He either was or he wasn't, unless it's like the anti-atheism meme you see quite a lot. How do you know if someone's an atheist? Don't worry, they'll tell you. You know, after you try to get them to do something that they weren't particularly comfortable with over and over and over a fucking again, and they just want you to stop asking. So say, "I'm sorry, I'm an atheist." Oh God, don't be shoving it down our throats. Anyway, everyone close your eyes and thank non-existo for this food he didn't pay for. Yeah, I hate how atheism is just so in your face, man.
What you can just say in response is, well, when did Jesus say, in quotes, "I am not God"?
Okay, regardless of how little I give a shit about the initial point, that's a freaking awful rebuttal. Like, seriously, people very rarely say, "I'm not cheese." Does that make them cheese? Wait a minute, let me check. Inconclusive. I mean, it could be cheese, but just like really red and warm cheese that tastes a bit like copper.
Never did. So, obviously the standard is stupid.
I know you are, but what is everyone else? Sorry, it had to be done.
Then you'd go on to how that Jesus said, "I am," and all the other things that he said, like forgiving sins that only God could do. Jesus made pretty clear that he was God.
Oof, of course, because no human could ever say, "I forgive your sins," and other shit that people repeat about Jesus saying. Wait, does that make everyone God then?
Next, atheism is better for society.
Anyone who would say that is making such an oversimplified point that it's essentially meaningless. Without some sort of worldview to go with it, atheism is nothing to a society. Good secular worldviews that create great societies are not that way because they're atheistic, but because of the more substantive portions of those worldviews. You know, with rights and all that jazz.
I don't think that's even true, because atheism has become widespread, and now we have a bunch of kids getting their wieners chomped off and a bunch of babies being aborted. That doesn't sound very good to me.
If you don't like people getting body parts removed or babies getting aborted, and especially just plain killed, you are going to fucking hate the Bible when you actually read it. Oof.
And of course, an atheist can't say something is better or not for society, because they don't have any standard to say that by.
The f*** are you talking about? They have a ton of standards to say that by. The standards anybody uses are from people in the first place, for starters, and the standards they often use are based on things like health, happiness, and life expectancy. Things that can be measured to one degree or another. God damn it.
Epistemological standard, that is.
Epistemological. That's an awfully big word for an awfully dumb ass. Fuck knows what you think it means, because all it means is relating to theory of knowledge, especially with regard to its methods, validity, and scope, and the distinction between justified belief and opinion, which frankly the standards used by most atheists are perfectly compatible with epistemology. I can only assume that you think it's some kind of cake.
You're an atheist to 3,999 gods. Going from 1 to 0 is quite a big jump.
Okay, but that's not really the point of that. I mean, if you think that's the case, you're saying leaping to some other religion would barely be a leap at all. And I would bet you'd actually disagree with that. But really the point is that all the things you might say of other religious beliefs and claims that make them false will essentially apply to your beliefs as well. So if you put the same standards to the one that you actually buy, you might not buy it for very long. At least not if you're being honest with yourself.
And there's good reasons to deny all those other gods. We come up with the reasons for those. For example, Islam. My reason is Muhammad doesn't seem like a true prophet to me.
Wow, that's such a shit reason. And like I said, it can be flipped. Jesus doesn't seem like he's the son of God to me. Oh no, all of Christianity debunked. Damn, if only you hadn't given us the tools to refute everything you believe ever.
Judaism. Jesus Christ rose. Jesus Christ is the Messiah.
Seriously, it does seem like your entire argument for anything is, well, I believe it. Yeah, well, they believe their shit too, and don't believe many of your claims. My God, they've debunked you as well.
All these other religions, they... Polytheistic religions, for example. Our arguments for God's existence leave us with a monotheistic God. One creator.
What arguments? I'd love to hear some, unless what you said are the arguments when, well, your argument boils down to but book though. And I gotta tell you, it's not exactly convincing.
Next. Or they don't even try to make an argument for the truth of the religion. For example, Buddhism. Buddhism just says live a nice life. It's not making a claim like Muhammad is a true prophet, Jesus Christ rose from the dead. I don't even know what Judaism's central claim is, because to refute Judaism, I just say Jesus is the Messiah.
What a shock it is that you would be ignorant of the claims of other religions. Man, it's almost like you made this video not only not really knowing anything about atheism, but also not knowing much of anything about other religions too. Shonk.
God of the Gaps.
I'll be shocked if he even knows what this is. I mean, what's the betting he thinks you just say it, therefore God no real?
When atheists say God of the Gaps, in God of the Gaps, this fallacy was originally created by a theist.
I love the fact that he said a theist, but in his own subtitles it says atheist. That's not just hilarious, it's also really funny.
Okay, atheists don't use it in the same way the God of the Gaps fallacy was originally created for.
Do they not? Do you want to tell me what it is created for then? Or at least what you think it was created for? Are you not going to do that and just claim that's what they do?
But when they say it, they usually say, like, when you use God as an explanation, just using God of the Gaps.
Alright, so the second one. Cool.
But in reality, you could say this about any explanation you come up with. For example, gravity. You do all your math equations, or whatever you do, all the nerd stuff you do. Like, oh, well, gravity does this, and whatever.
Wow, that was something. Gravity is nerd shit, apparently, and not simply a fundamental force of the universe that makes, planets work. Imagine being such a dumbass that anything that explains how things actually work is just nerd shit to you. No wonder he doesn't fucking understand anything.
Or this exists, this exists, like a little nerd. Then you come up to say, well, gravity is explanation for it. The gravity theory, whatever.
Oh, god damn it, I just realised where he's going with this, and my god, it's so stupid. It comes all the way back round to being genius. No, wait, I mean even more fucking stupid.
Someone could just come along and say, well, that's gravity of the gaps.
I fucking told you. I warned you all. So if you weren't wearing your sick branded face protectors before this came up, you have no one to blame but yourself for the painful face palm. And the fact that I don't sell sick branded face protectors. But that's mostly because they keep breaking for some reason.
Obviously that's stupid, but that's the type of reason they're using here. If you use something as an explanation, automatically it's God of the gaps.
Damn it, again. No, they don't. None of this, not in any way, remotely reflects what a God of the Gaps argument is. God of the Gaps is when you don't have an explanation for something, and instead of finding out if there is one, or if no one has come up with one, trying to discover it, you simply say, God did it, and move on. It is certainly not using an explanation we know and understand, and someone else goes, that's just scientific theory of the gaps. You absolute moron. What the hell is wrong with you?
Doesn't make sense, but I can see how it'd be somewhat compelling at first glance, so I'll go with D.
He put it in D for doesn't not understand nothing. Fuck me.
Can God make a rock he can't lift? I'll put that in D, because again, it could seem compelling at the start, because it seems like, oh, well, it seems like it's the omnipotence paradox, right?
It is the omnipotence paradox, or at least part of it. Although this one doesn't disprove God per se, it disproves a type of God with certain specific characteristics, at least from a logic standpoint. It's more about getting you to think about how these things would work, rather than dunking on theists. Personally, I don't find it hugely compelling, but I do get the point.
But it's like asking God to make a square circle. Omnipotence doesn't mean you can do the logically incoherence. Okay, asking God to make a rock so heavy you can't lift is a logically incoherent idea.
Having the ability to do literally anything is also logically incoherent. Also, if God is so powerful, making a square circle is not actually that hard. See? Apparently, I'm more powerful than God. But I think we knew that already.
So, it doesn't impugn omnipotence. Having faith means you deny evidence. F. That's just not true.
I've never heard any atheist say that. But fuck it. What would be meant by that? Would be faith does not require evidence. In fact, it is described as belief in the absence of evidence. So it's less about denying evidence and more that you believe things for which there is none. Not the same thing.
Evolution. That goes in D. Or actually, you know what? Because to me it's an F, because evolution is completely compatible with Christianity.
Oh good, at least the nerd shit of evolution seems to be something he believes in. Although, if you think it's completely compatible with Christianity, you really ought to talk to creationists. They think it's lies made up by Big Darwin in order to hide the truth of God by helping us understand the world better. So unless you want to know true Scotsman them, then go ahead. It's just they really seem to think they are Christians too for some reason.
But I feel like to the average person it might be a C.
What the fuck has the average person got to do with your tier list for how they think the big dumb? Either you think it's compelling or you don't. This isn't a list of what other people think about things. Motherfucker literally doesn't even know how having opinions works.
Because when you talk to an atheist, what is one of the first things they bring up? Oh, well, evolution theory has completely buried God.
Do they? Again, not something I've heard. Now, a literal interpretation of the Bible isn't great when evolution demonstrates that many of its claims are false, but other than that, I mean, the concept of a God full stop is perfectly able to exist while evolution being true. You know, because that's how words work.
It doesn't follow from evolution that God doesn't exist. Many theists accept evolution. And it's been for a very long time.
I don't know which atheists you have been speaking to, but tell me, did they have the uncanny smell of a grain crop byproduct? Because it sounds like they were made of fucking straw to me, mate.
And even before Darwin, because I forgot, I think it was St. Augustine.
Considering that Darwin literally popularized the idea, that sounds just a tad unlikely. That Christians were talking about old evolution before, you know, most people had ever heard of the concept.
I believe. Who said, you know, there's alternative creation hypotheses that can be made from Genesis. It doesn't necessarily mean exclusively 7-day creation.
Aside from the fact that that's what the book, says, maybe they should change it to whatever you want it to be. It's not like it hasn't been edited a bunch of times already. How about the King Dipshit edition for real smart guys who know how to opinions the best? Honest.
Next, universe is too big. I don't know what that means, F. If God, why evil? Okay, this is an interesting one. That goes in B.
Wow, we just shot by that one, didn't we? I mean, where did you even get these from if you don't know what they mean? Although, if I'm completely honest, I don't think you know what any of them mean. But are you not gonna even try? The universe is too big. There's a bunch of shit that could mean. It could be that it doesn't make sense for God to make a universe the size that it is for the sake of one blue marble to look at and go, ooh. It could be that the way the universe is described in the Bible doesn't match up with what we know about it. It could be that you're an idiot. I'm sorry, I can't help myself from spitting straight facts.
So the answer, because this is especially interesting because this is a big problem for like Calvinists, which I'm not. The answer is free will.
Lol, who would have thought that the problem of evil, his answer for it would be such an obviously bad bitch tier answer? Because free will causes tsunamis, and free will makes insects that do all sorts of horrors to various animals, humans included. Free will causes baby cancer. How about no?
And evil is a result of misuse of free will. Seems pretty simple to me, but I can see how they'd be a bit unconvincing, because they may come up and say, well, why doesn't God create people who would freely choose not to do evil?
I already told you, free will has nothing to do with anything of the sort. I mean, aside from the fact that I don't believe in what you would be likely talking about, which is libertarian free will, it cannot explain things that I and many others would consider to be evil, awful things. I mean, evaporation. It can take away my precious whiskey without me having a chance to drink the beautiful liquid. Clearly, there is no loving God in a world where that can happen.
This is where a concept called, this is from Alvin Plantinga, this concept of transworld depravity comes in. Essentially, if there is the option to do evil, which if someone has free will, they have the option to do evil. If not, then they don't have free will.
There's an interesting rebuttal to this, which goes along the lines of, will there be evil in heaven? To which the answer tends to be no. And is there free will in heaven? Which the answer tends to be yes. So if God can create a space where there is both free will and evil simply cannot exist, then why would he, as the all-lover, not have done it everywhere that he has the all-power? Seems a bit odd that he wouldn't. That, or he's bollocks and doesn't exist.
If they have the option to free will, then it logically follows that in a possible world, they will do some form of evil.
That's just a bizarre conclusion. People have the option to do lots of things that they don't tend to actually do. And depending on exactly how you define evil, and I would define it as pretty strong, murder, assault, and abuse, and those kinds of things, I find it extremely likely that there's a large number of people that have not committed any evil whatsoever. And no, making God sad because you don't believe bullshit would not count. Also, neither does swearing, you fuckknuckle.
So to me, that seems to get rid of the problem of God creating someone with free will that wouldn't do anything wrong. Because in some possible world, if they have the option, they will do some form of evil.
God making a world with evil is okay because I decided that all people do evil all the time. It makes you wonder what evil this guy has done then. Obviously, it's crimes against logic and reason.
Why doesn't God just get rid of free will? Well, I would say it's a greater good to have free will rather than not, because, for example, love. Love can't exist without free will.
You're going to have to go a long way to explain that, because, most people don't fall in love because they want to. So if you don't choose to fall in love, then what has free will got to do with it, apart from nothing? Honestly, who needs a heart when a heart can be broken against your will?
People can't come into loving relationships with God, come to God freely if there is no free will, obviously. So I do think free will existing is a greater good. And I don't think we're in any position to say, the world would be better if not.
It's not about better, it's about that what you think of as free will just kind of isn't a thing. Humans are just biological machines reacting to input. Now that doesn't mean that they aren't responsible for their actions, but it does mean that regardless of how you wanting to go do a love at God, that's not something that you would have any control over in the grand scheme of things, including in your own worldview anyway. Because again, if he's all power, then he also knows everything you are going to do ever. And if you can't do anything other than what God knows you are going to do, then I'm sorry, but no free will for you.
Also, I mean, I already talked about, atheists not really have a standard for good or bad. They have it written on their heart. It does say it in the Bible, but as far as within their own worldview, they don't really have a standard.
Except we do. It's just that you've clearly never fucking talked to any atheists ever. Much like all Myster-M have defeated the Athey Boy types. Why know what you're talking about when you can just make shit up?
Next, if God, why do some not believe?
Christ, I can't do this anymore. Even his tier-listed arguments are devolving into incoherent gibberish. Or were they always like that? I don't know. Maybe I'll have to come back when I'm a little less drunk. Or maybe more drunk. Or dead. Yeah, that works. I mean, I could see this video playing in my own personal health, that's for damn sure.
Wait, before you go, I have something super important to tell you. It's life or death. It will change everything forever. No, wait, it's gone. Oh well, probably wasn't important. But while I have you, don't forget to comment, subscribe and notify. And if you want more of my smexy voice, check out Mrs. Six channel Spoonstaff Stories, where I narrate and voice all the videos. And she does the work. And if you want to support the channel, check out the merch store for cool t-shirts, or check out Patreon, memberships and PayPal to support directly. Finally, follow me on the medias of social to get completely pointless guff and to keep up on the latest releases. Oh, I just remembered what I was going to tell you. Whatever you do, don't touch the